The desert stretched wide and endless, glowing under the red sun of the colony world. Heat shimmered above the sand, and the air smelled faintly of dry earth and minerals. Across the silent land walked a young explorer named Leon. He had come from the larger cities near the mountains, where glass towers and humming machines marked the progress of humankind. But here, far away from the noise of the cities, was a place untouched, alive with the whisper of ancient traditions carried through generations. Leon had been sent to map water routes and examine old reservoirs buried in the desert canyons. Water was precious, and every drop mattered. His scanner hummed quietly in his hand, tracing hidden streams that ran deep beneath the ground. The work was simple, but for Leon it felt like a chance to breathe. The desert was lonely, yes, but it was honest. The silence of the sand was kinder than the endless chatter of city streets. After many hours of walking, he noticed something unusual. In the distance, sharp cliffs rose from the desert floor, creating deep cuts of shadow. At first, he thought it was only another canyon, but when he drew closer, he saw smoke rising like a thin thread into the sky. His heart quickened. Settlements were rare this far out. Only those with strong roots and stronger will could survive. In such a harsh place, as he descended into the canyon, the sound of voices reached his ears. Children laughed somewhere beyond the stone walls, and the steady rhythm of drums echoed faintly. When he stepped into the open space, his eyes widened. An entire village rested in the shelter of the canyon. Homes built of stone and clay stood side by side with structures of metal and glass, blending the old with the new. Solar panels glimmered on rooftops, while painted patterns marked the walls, telling stories of ancestors long gone. Men and women worked together, weaving baskets, tending crops grown in narrow strips of fertile soil, and repairing machines that looked as though they had been brought here generations ago. The people noticed him at once. A group of children ran past, pointing and whispering, before darting away to hide behind a wall. Older villagers looked on with steady eyes, their expressions unreadable. Leon raised a hand in greeting, unsure of what to say. A tall man approached, his long black hair tied behind his head, his face strong and calm. He wore simple clothing, but carried himself with the authority of a leader. "You are far from the city," the man said, his voice deep and measured. "I am." Leon replied carefully, "My work brought me here. I follow water. I mean no harm." The man studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Water is life. You may stay. But remember, you walk among our people. Respect is asked of you, and respect will be given in return. Grateful." Leon bowed slightly. "Thank you." The villagers slowly returned to their tasks, though many still watched him with quiet curiosity. As he walked deeper into the village, he felt the weight of their gaze, not hostile, but cautious. He realized this was not simply a settlement. It was a community bound together by ties stronger than walls or machines. These were descendants of the Apache people of old Earth, guardians of traditions carried across light years. To this new world, by evening, the canyon glowed with firelight. Drums beat steadily, and voices rose in song. Leon sat near the edge of the gathering, offered food and water by a kind elder. He listened to the stories told, words weaving history and spirit. They spoke of ancestors who had crossed deserts long before spaceflight, of struggles and victories, of a people who never surrendered their identity. It was in that moment that Leon began to feel the weight of where he was. He had come only to map water, yet now he stood in a place where history and the future met. He felt both a stranger and a witness. After the songs ended, he wandered toward the edge of the canyon, seeking a quiet place to think. The stars above were sharp and bright, scattered like jewels across the night sky. His scanner still hummed, faintly at his side, tracing the flow of hidden water through the stone. He followed it until he reached an old structure half buried in rock, its entrance hidden behind thick vines. Curiosity led him inside. The chamber was dim, lit only by slivers of moonlight slipping through cracks above. Stone walls surrounded him, shaped carefully by hands long ago, though machines and pipes now clung to them, humming softly as they carried water from deep underground. It was one of the old reservoirs he had been searching for, but as he stepped further in, he froze. At the far side of the chamber, near the pool of water that reflected the faint light, stood a young woman. Her long dark hair fell over her shoulders. As she bent near the water, her hands busy with the final touches of a ceremonial garment, she was draped in bright woven cloth. But part of her preparation had left her uncovered for a brief moment. She turned, startled, her eyes wide with shock as she saw him standing there. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The chamber was filled only with the soft trickle of water and the sound of their breathing. The girl's voice finally broke the silence, trembling yet fierce. "You should not be here. You saw me in my right. This is forbidden." Leon raised his hands quickly, his face pale. "I did not mean it. I was searching for the reservoir. I did not know." Her eyes filled with alarm, but not anger. Instead, she spoke words that carried heavy weight. "Now you must marry me, or we will both be punished. The elders will not forgive this. Our law is clear." Leon felt the world tilt around him. He had come to find water, and instead he had stumbled into a law that could change his life forever. And as the echoes of her words filled the chamber, he understood that his arrival in this canyon was not by chance. His journey had only just begun. The air inside the reservoir chamber grew heavy. The young woman's words struck Leon like a blow he could not see. Marry her. He had not expected such a law, nor had he meant to intrude. Yet her voice was firm, her eyes steady with fear and certainty. This was no small matter. The girl stepped back, pulling her ceremonial cloth across her shoulders more tightly. Her breathing quickened, but she did not look away. "My name is Naya," she said. "This chamber is sacred. Only women of the right may enter. You came inside while I prepared. The elders will say you saw me as no stranger should. The law says you must stand with me now. If you refuse, punishment will fall on us both." Leon's heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to speak, to explain that it had been a mistake, but the weight of her voice told him excuses would not matter. He could see it in her expression. This was not simply about shame. It was about the place she held among her people. If the law was broken, her family would carry dishonor, and he himself would be cast out. "Maybe worse. I did not know," he said softly. "I only came searching for water." "I believe you," Naya replied, though her voice trembled. "But belief will not protect us. The law is older than either of us. The elders will ask. I must tell them what happened, and when I speak, they will demand the answer." Leon looked at the pool of water beside them. It rippled gently, reflecting the faint light of the chamber above. He had come for this water. Yet now he was caught in a trial he did not understand. He turned his eyes back to Naya. She was no longer simply a stranger from a hidden village. She was now bound to him by a moment neither could undo. "Then take me to them," he said, though his voice shook. "If this must be faced, let me face it." Naya studied him for a moment, as if weighing his sincerity. Then she nodded and moved toward the chamber's exit. The soft rustle of her steps against the stone echoed in the still air. Leon followed, each footstep heavy with uncertainty. When they emerged from the reservoir into the open canyon, night had deepened. Stars filled the sky like countless watchful eyes. Fires still burned in the center of the village, where people gathered in circles, talking and laughing. But when Naya appeared with Leon at her side, the voices grew quiet. The villagers' eyes sharpened, their attention fixed. An elder woman stepped forward, her face lined with years yet shining with authority. She looked first at Naya, then at Leon. "You went to the chamber," she said. It was not a question, but a statement. Naya lowered her head. "Yes, grandmother. I was in my right." He entered. He saw. Gasps rose among the people. Murmurs rippled like wind through tall grass. The elder's eyes narrowed as she turned to Leon. "Do you know what this means, outsider?" Leon swallowed hard. "She told me, your law demands marriage. I did not know. I did not mean to break your rule. But I cannot change what happened." The elder's gaze was sharp, but she seemed to search his face for something. Perhaps truth. Perhaps respect. After a long pause, she raised her voice so all could hear. "The law is old. It was brought from earth, carried in our hearts across the stars. It binds us still. If this man saw her in her right, then he must join her in union. To refuse is dishonor. To refuse is exile. Both would suffer. The villagers murmured louder. Some shook their heads, others nodded. Children looked wide-eyed, sensing the weight of what was being decided. Nia stood still, her hands clasped tightly. Though her face showed calm, her eyes betrayed her fear. Leon saw it. She did not want to lose her place among her people. She did not want to be marked by shame. He understood then that her demand was not selfish. It was survival. "I will accept," Leon said suddenly, his voice carrying across the gathering. The words surprised even him, yet they felt right. He could not let her stand alone. Nor could he risk bringing punishment upon them both. "If this is your law, then I will stand by it." The crowd fell into silence. The elder studied him once more, her sharp gaze softening slightly. "You speak with courage. Few outsiders would do so. Very well. The union will be made. Tomorrow. Before the fires, you will both be bound." At that, the people slowly began to disperse. Though many eyes lingered on Leon and Nia, some were curious, others doubtful. But the decision was sealed out when the crowd thinned. Nia turned to him. Her face was pale in the firelight, her voice quiet. "You agreed quickly. You could have refused and taken exile." Leon gave a faint smile, though his heart still raced, "and leave you to face punishment alone. I could not. I would not." Her eyes softened, just for a moment, though she quickly looked away. "You do not understand all that this means. Marriage here is not like in the cities. It is not a word only. It is duty, family, and bond. Tomorrow, you will be tied to me, before the whole village, and after that, your life will not be your own." Leon nodded slowly. "Perhaps not, but I came here for water, and now I see something greater. If this is the path, then I will walk it." They parted for the night, each returning to separate shelters. Leon lay awake under the roof of woven reeds and clay, staring at the flicker of firelight against the walls. His mind spun with questions. What had he stepped into? Would this village ever accept him? And what of Nia, who now stood at the center of his fate? Beyond the walls, the drums slowly faded, replaced by the whisper of wind across the canyon. Somewhere in the distance, machines hummed softly, pumping water from hidden rivers. Life moved forward as it always had. Yet for Leon, everything had changed. Tomorrow, he would no longer be a wanderer of the desert. Tomorrow, he would become part of something older than himself, something rooted in both earth and stars. Tomorrow, he would stand before the fires. Nia's chosen, not by chance, but by the law of a people who had endured for centuries. And though he feared what lay ahead, a spark of resolve began to grow in his chest. Perhaps this mistake was not only a burden, perhaps it was the beginning of a story he was meant to live. Morning came with a soft golden light that touched the canyon walls. Birds circled above, their cries echoing between the cliffs. The village stirred awake, and soon the sound of footsteps, voices, and tools filled the air. For Leon, however, the new day brought more than routine. It carried the weight of a decision already made. He stepped outside the small shelter where he had been given rest. The air was cool, though the promise of heat waited in the sky. Villagers moved past him, some with cautious glances, others with simple curiosity. Children paused to stare before being called back by their parents. Leon could feel it every eye held judgment, not unkind but careful, as if measuring whether he belonged. At the center of the canyon, a great fire pit had been prepared. Around it stood benches carved from stone and decorated with bright woven cloth. The colors glowed against the rough rock, symbols of tradition and ceremony. Men and women were already gathering, voices low, waiting for what was to come. Nia was there too, dressed in a garment of deep red and white patterns. Her long hair was braided with feathers. Her face calm, though her eyes betrayed unease. When she looked at Leon across the gathering, he felt the connection between them unwanted at first, yet now inescapable. The elder woman, whom the villagers called Grandmother Tala, stood near the fire. Her staff was carved with marks of years and Wisdom. She raised her hand, and the crowd fell into silence. Last night, Tala began. Her voice steady, our law was broken. A sacred place was entered by one who had no right, and a young woman was seen during her rite. This cannot be ignored. Our law demands balance for generations. It has guided us through desert and sky, through hardship and change, the law says. If such a moment happens, then the two must be joined. This is not a punishment, it is a bond. It is the way our people preserve honor and unity. She turned to Leon, outsider. You agreed before the fire of night, but words spoken in haste may fade with the dawn. We ask you again, do you accept the bond with Naya, to share in her family, her people, and her life? The question hung heavy in the air. Every villager leaned closer, listening. Even the desert wind seemed to pause. Leon looked at Naya. She stood tall, her hands folded before her, her gaze locked on him. He saw no anger there, only fear that he might step away and leave her alone to face disgrace. He thought of the city, of the noise and glass towers where people lived side by side but rarely cared for one another. Here was different. Here, one. The stake touched not only to people but an entire community. He drew in a breath and spoke clearly. I accept. I will stand with her. If your law calls for this, then I will honor it. The words carried across the crowd. Some villagers nodded in approval, others whispered, uncertain. But Grandmother Tala gave a slow smile. Then it is so, she declared, tonight. When the sun falls and the stars rise, the fire will witness your union. Until then, you will walk among us to learn what this bond means. The villagers broke into groups, some returning to their work, others staying to prepare for the evening. The fire pit was clean and decorated. Food was set aside for a feast, and songs began to be practiced. Leon stood still, feeling the weight of what he had just confirmed. Nay approached him, her steps quiet, her face unreadable. When she stopped beside him, she spoke in a low voice meant only for him. You have bound yourself now. Once the fire sees it, there will be no turning back. I know, Leon replied. I gave my word. Her eyes searched his, as if trying to understand the reason behind his decision. Finally, she gave a faint nod. Then you must learn quickly. Come, walk with me. They left the center of the village and followed a narrow path along the canyon wall. Naya spoke as they walked. Marriage here is not only between two, it is between families. It is between you and the land. You will be asked to share in our work, our duty, our struggles. If you cannot, you will bring shame not only to me, but to all of us. Leon listened carefully. Then teach me, he said. If I must be part of this, I will not fail. For ours, Naya showed him the rhythm of village life. They visited the fields where thin streams of water fed green rows of crops. Leon learned how every drop was used wisely, how channels were opened and closed to share the flow. They walked past machines that hummed softly, ancient yet carefully maintained. Carrying water from deep beneath the desert, children ran past them, laughing. Their energy a sign of hope in a hard land. At one point, they stopped near a tall stone where carvings told the story of their people. This is who we are, Naya explained, when our ancestors were taken from Earth to the stars. They carried not weapons, not riches, but memory of who we are. That is why we hold to law. Without it, we would be lost. Leon studied the carvings. He saw shapes of desert, sun, and stars woven together in patterns of strength. He began to understand. These people had endured because they clung to identity. And now, by chance, he had stepped into their story. By late afternoon, the village buzzed with preparation. Drums echoed across the canyon as the young practiced songs. Fires were built for cooking, and bright cloths were hung along the walls. Leon felt the energy growing. This was not only a ceremony, it was an event for all, a reminder of law and tradition. As the sun sank lower, painting the cliffs with shades of red and gold, Naya and Leon stood once more before the great fire pit. Grandmother Tala raised her staff, calling all together. She spoke in a voice that carried through the canyon. Tonight we witness a union born of mistake, but carried forward by choice. Naya, daughter of our people, and Leon, wanderer of the desert, will now be bound. Let all remember this. Even in error, respect can grow. Even in chance, honor can be found. The crowd circled the fire, their voices rising in song. The flames leapt high, casting light upon Naya and Leon as they stepped forward together. For Leon, the moment was unreal. Only a day ago he had been a lone explorer, chasing hidden streams of water. Now he was about to join a people bound by ancient memory. The fire crackled, the drums pounded, and the eyes of the village watched. The law had spoken, the bond would be sealed, and with it, his life would change forever. The fire burned bright in the heart of the canyon. Sparks rose into the night sky. Carried upward by the dry wind, round the flames, the people gathered in a wide circle. Their songs echoed against the cliffs, a steady rhythm of drums and voices that spoke of tradition, unity, and the long survival of their people. Leon stood beside Naya at the center of it all. The heat of the fire touched his face, but it was not the flames that made his heart pound. It was the weight of what he was about to do. He glanced at Naya. Her face was calm, her eyes fixed on the flames. She stood tall, as though her spirit refused to show weakness before her people. Grandmother Tala stepped forward, her staff in hand. She raised it high, and the circle grew silent. The only sounds were the crackle of fire and the slow beat of drums. Tonight, she said, we witness a union. It is not born of courtship, nor of long waiting. It is born of necessity, of law, of the moment that cannot be undone. Yet law is not chains. Law is the root of the tree that holds us firm in storms. As roots strengthen the tree, so will this bond strengthen us if it is honored. She turned her gaze to Naya first. Child of our people, do you accept this man, not as chance forced you, but as choice to walk beside him, to share burden and gift alike? Naya lifted her head. Her voice carried clear. I accept, by law and by spirit. I will walk with him. Then Tala turned to Leon. Outsider, wanderer, seeker of water. You came by mistake, yet stayed by word. Do you accept this woman, not as burden, but as partner, to honor her and honor the people you now join? The firelight flickered across Leon's face as he spoke. I accept. I give my word before all here. I will walk beside her. At his answer, the villagers let out a long breath, some murmuring approval, others nodding. The drums rose louder, carrying the moment forward. Grandmother Tala lowered her staff to touch both their shoulders. Then before the fire, before the people, and before the memory of our ancestors, you are joined. Let this bond be carried in your steps, in your words, and in your life. The circle erupted in song. Drums pounded, voices rose, and the fire flared higher as herbs were thrown into the flames. Bright sparks danced into the night. Naya and Leon were led round the fire 3 times, their hands tied together with a red and white cord. Each turn around the flames was a step of meaning. The first for life, the second for duty, the third for unity. When the walk was done, the cord was cut but not untied. Each kept part of it wrapped around their wrist, a symbol that the bond could not be undone by blade or fire. The songs turned to laughter, and the feast began. Food was brought from every home, roasted grain, cooked meat, sweet fruits, and fresh bread. Cups were filled with water drawn from deep springs, and all ate together. Leon sat beside Naya, their place marked at the head of the gathering. Villagers came to speak with them, some offering blessings, others testing his spirit with questions. An older man asked if he knew how to mend a water pipe. A young woman asked if he could carry stones in the heat. Each question was not small. Talk but a measure. Could he carry the weight of being part of them? Leon answered with honesty. He admitted he did not know all their ways, but he promised to learn. To his surprise, many smiled at this. They valued truth more than false pride. As the night grew late, children danced near the fire, their shadows flickering across the canyon walls. Naya leaned slightly toward him and spoke in a quiet voice. You have stepped into my world. You have done so with courage, though you do not yet understand it. The people will watch you closely. If you stumble, they will forgive once. If you stumble twice, They will not. I will try not to stumble, Leon said, his tone simple but firm. She looked at him for a moment, then gave the faintest smile, quick as the flash of a star. Good. Then perhaps this bond will not be only a necessity. Perhaps it will become more. The feast continued long into the night. Stories were told, laughter rose, and the sound of drums echoed until the stars moved high above. Yet beneath the joy, Leon felt a current of seriousness. This was not just celebration, it was a binding of lives. He belonged now, whether ready or not, when the fire finally burned low. The people drifted back to their homes. Nye led Leon to a small dwelling prepared for them both. It was built of stone and clay, its walls painted with patterns of sun and river. Inside, woven blankets lay neatly folded, and a lamp burned softly. Naya set the lamp on a table and turned to him. Her voice was steady from this night on. You are part of this place. You will rise when the people rise. You will work when they work. You will give as much as you take. Do you understand? I understand, Leon answered. Then rest, she said, sitting by the wall. Tomorrow, you begin. Leon lay down on the blanket, his mind alive with thoughts. The fire's glow still burned in his memory. The sound of drums echoed faintly in his ears. He thought of the law that had bound him here, of Naya's strength, of the villagers' watchful eyes. He was no longer only an explorer. He was now part of something greater, something heavier, something real. As sleep took him, one truth settled deep in his heart. What began as accident was now duty. What began as mistake was now bond. This was the union of necessity, and from it, his path would never be the same. The sun rose high above the canyon, painting the cliffs with shades of gold and orange. Morning came with the sound of drums, not for celebration, but for work, in this village. Every hand had a task, every person carried a duty. Leon now belonged to them, and his new life began with the first light of day. He woke to the call of voices outside his home. Naya was already awake, preparing tools by the doorway. Her long braid swayed as she moved with practiced grace. She glanced at him with a serious expression. Come, the people will not wait. Today you work beside me. Leon rose quickly, though his body still felt heavy from the long night. He followed Naya into the bright sunlight where groups of men and women carried baskets, tools, and jars. The canyon was alive with energy. Children laughed as they filled small clay pots with water, while elders sat in the shade weaving ropes. Naya handed him a tool made of metal and wood. You will help with the channels. Water must flow evenly through the fields. If you fail, crops will die. Leon nodded. I will do my best. Together they walked to the fields. Thin green rows stretched across the soil, fed by streams guided through narrow channels. The desert was harsh, but here life grew because of careful hands and ancient methods mixed with machines. Men worked to open and close gates of stone, while others dug the ground to direct the flow. An older man named Koa greeted Naya with a nod, then turned his eyes to Leon. So this is the outsider who joined us by law, he said, his voice deep. Let us see if he has the strength to stay. Without another word, Koa pointed to a section where a channel had collapsed, blocking the water. There, dig in shape, make it strong. Leon knelt and began his work. The soil was dry and hard, and the sun pressed heavily on his back. Sweat formed quickly on his forehead. He dug with the tool, shaping the earth as best he could, but his arms soon ached. His hands blistered, and the channel broke apart again when the water rushed too strongly. Koa shook his head. Too weak, too clumsy. If you cannot shape the water, how will you shape life with us? Leon's chest tightened with frustration. He tried again, but the soil crumbled and the water spilled where it should not. The crops nearest the break bent and began to drown. Naya stepped forward and guided his hands. Not like this. The soil must be pressed firmly, the walls curved to hold. Watch and learn. She shaped the channel with steady movements, and the water flowed smoothly again. The plants straightened, saved from harm. You see, Koa said, this is our way. Not haste, not guessing, patience and skill. If you cannot learn, you will not belong. The words cut deep into Leon's heart. He wanted to prove himself, but his body felt weak, and his mind clouded with doubt. Perhaps he did not belong here. Perhaps he had made a mistake in agreeing to the union by midday. His arms ached so much he could barely lift the tool. His skin burned under the desert sun. When the call for rest came, he sat beneath a stone ledge, drinking deeply from a jar of water. Round him, villagers talked and laughed, their movements sure, their work smooth. None of them struggled as he did. Naya sat beside him, her face unreadable. After a moment, she spoke. "You worked hard, but you failed." Leon lowered his eyes. "I know. Perhaps I'm not meant for this. I was trained to walk with machines, to map rivers beneath stone, not to shape soil with my hands. Maybe I should never have agreed." Her gaze sharpened. "Do not say that. You gave your word before the fire. If you turn from it now, you will not only shame me, but bring dishonor to yourself. The people may forgive weakness, but they will never forgive a broken word." Leon felt the weight of her words. Still, doubt gnawed at him. Could he really live here? Could he become part of these people? He thought of the city beyond the desert, where machines did the work, and hands were not blistered from the soil. That world felt easier, safer. Here, every mistake cost more. In the afternoon, they worked again, this time repairing a broken water pipe that connected the reservoir to the village. The pipe was old, its metal worn from years of use. Villagers gathered with tools, and Koa pointed at Leon. "Hold this steady while we mend it." Leon gripped the heavy pipe, but his arms shook. The weight was greater than he expected, and his balance slipped. The pipe fell, striking the stone with a loud clang. Water sprayed into the air, and the villagers shouted in alarm. Koa scowled. "You bring trouble with every hand. Are you here to help or to destroy?" Shame burned through Leon's chest. He wanted to shout that he was trying, that he had not asked for this life, that the law had forced it upon him, but the words stayed trapped in his throat. He only stood there, silent, as others rushed to repair the damage he had caused. When the work ended at last, the sun was setting, the fields were saved, the pipe repaired. But the whispers of doubt spread through the villagers. Some shook their heads as they passed Leon. Others spoke quietly among themselves. He heard fragments of their voices. "Too weak. Not one of us. Mistake." That night, as the fire burned once more in the center of the canyon, Leon sat apart from the others. He stared into the flames, his hands raw with blisters, his heart heavy. Around him, the people laughed and told stories, but he felt only the distance between himself and them. Night approached, carrying two bowls of food. She set one before him and sat across from him. Her voice was quiet. "You carry doubt." Leon looked up, his eyes tired. "I do. Maybe I cannot be what your people need. Maybe I should have taken exile." She studied him for a long moment. Then she said, "Strength is not only in arms, it is in spirit. You failed today, yes, but failure is not the end. The people will watch to see if you rise again. If you give up, they will never accept you. If you try, they may. You must decide." Her words stayed with him long after she left. He looked at the fire, at the sparks rising into the night sky, and wondered, could he rise after so much failure? Could he truly learn the ways of these people? As the stars spread wide above the canyon, Leon felt the sharp weight of doubt pressing deeper, yet somewhere beneath it, a small spark of determination flickered. He had stumbled, yes, but perhaps tomorrow would give him another chance. The next morning, the desert wind carried a strange stillness. The villagers rose early, but their movements were sharper, more tense than before. Word had spread quickly. Strange lights had been seen near the horizon in the night sky, not like stars, not like storms. Rumors flowed like water. Some said machines were landing. Others whispered of raiders. Leon woke to the sound of voices gathering at the canyon's edge. He stepped outside, his body still sore from the previous day's failures. Nai was already there, standing tall with the others. Her face was calm, though her eyes watched the horizon with care. He joined her. "What is happening?" "Ships." She answered. "Not ours." He followed her gaze, far beyond the cliffs, Faint silver shapes glimmered in the morning sun, moving across the desert sky. They were large, steady, and controlled to be natural. His chest tightened. These were not friendly explorers. Grandmother Tala raised her staff, her voice carrying across the gathering. The watchers from the stars are here. For many years they ignored us, for we were small. But now they come, seeking our water, our land, our lives. We must be ready. The villagers murmured. Some looked afraid. Others clenched their fists in anger. Leon felt the same weight of fear pressing down on him, but also something else, a stirring of resolve. He had seen ships like these before. Not here, but in his journeys near the cities. He knew their power, their machines, their hunger. These were not strangers to him. He could help. He stepped forward. I know their kind. I have seen the machines they use, the way they move. If you let me, I can help you prepare. The villagers turned to him. With doubtful eyes, Koa crossed his arms. You, who could not even shape a channel. You, who dropped the pipe and brought us trouble. You think you can face ships from the stars? Leon's face flushed with shame. But he did not step back. Yes, I failed before. But this, I know. I have walked near their machines. I have seen how they fight. If you push me aside, you may lose your chance to stand against them. For a long moment, silence hung. Then Nais spoke. Listen to him. He may not know our ways yet, but he knows theirs. If he has knowledge, we should use it. To ignore him would be foolish. Grandmother Tala studied Leon closely. Very well, she said at last. You will show us what you know. But hear me, outsider. If you fail us again, the law will not protect you. Leon nodded, his heart pounding. This was his chance, perhaps his only one, to prove himself. The village moved quickly. Men and women carried weapons, bows, rifles, and tools adapted from old machines. Children were gathered and hidden in the safest caves. Elders marked the canyon paths with signals. Every step was careful, yet the fear in the air was heavy. Leon worked beside Naya, showing them what he remembered. He explained how enemy scouts moved in pairs, how their machines sent signals through the air, and how their armor could resist a direct strike but fail when hit from the sides. He guided them in setting traps along the narrow path stones, ready to fall, fires hidden beneath brush, water channels waiting to flood at the right moment. Koa still doubted him, his eyes sharp and mistrustful. But even he followed the instructions when Grandmother Tala gave her command. The people worked together, mixing their ancient knowledge of the land with Leon's warnings. By afternoon, the ships had drawn closer. Dust rose in the distance as machines landed beyond the canyon. The ground trembled faintly under their weight. The villagers waited in silence, every breath heavy with fear. Naya stood beside Leon, her bow ready, her face steady as stone. She glanced at him and spoke in a low voice. This is the moment. Do not stumble now. I will not. Leon answered, though his heart raced. The first enemy machines entered the canyon. They were tall, metal creatures on legs that sank into the sand, their bodies glowing with faint light. Behind them walked figures in armor, their helmets shining, their weapons humming with energy. Their steps echoed off the canyon walls, steady and confident. The villagers waited in hiding. Leon gave the signal with his hand. A group of men released the first trap. Stones tumbled from above, crashing onto the machines, to fell, their legs crushed, sparks flying from their broken joints. The armored figures shouted, their weapons firing bursts of light into the cliffs. Arrows flew from hidden ledges, rifles cracked, the enemy stumbled, not ready for resistance. Water channels burst open, flooding the ground, turning the sand into mud that slowed their march. Leon watched carefully, shouting directions, aim for the sides, strike the joints, do not face them head on. His voice carried through the canyon, and the villagers followed. The enemy pushed forward, firing wildly, but the narrow paths worked against them. Their machines struggled to move. Their armor struck from all sides. Step by step, the villagers held their ground. Naya fought fiercely, her arrows flying true. She moved like the wind, quick and precise. Leon stayed close, using a captured weapon from a fallen enemy, his shots guided by memory of past battles. For the first time since he entered the canyon, His hands did not falter. Ours passed in fierce struggle. When the sun began to set, the last of the enemy retreated, dragging their broken machines back across the desert. The canyon fell silent again, filled only with the heavy breathing of the villagers. A cheer rose from the people. They had won, not with numbers, not with power, but with unity, tradition, and the spark of knowledge. The fire of resistance had burned bright, and they had held their home. Grandmother Tala stepped forward, her staff raised. Today we stood as one. We faced the watchers from the stars, and we did not fall. Remember this day, for it shows that even the smallest village can burn brighter than the greatest machine. The villagers turned to Leon. For the first time, their eyes held no doubt. Some even smiled, clapping his shoulders, calling his name. Koa, though still stern, gave a short nod of respect. Naya looked at him, her face calm but her eyes glowing with something new. You did not stumble, she said softly. Leon breathed deeply, the weight of doubt lifting from his chest. For the first time since entering this canyon, he felt truly part of it. The law had brought him here, yes, necessity had bound him. But now, through fire and struggle, he had begun to earn his place. The spark had ignited, and in that spark, a new strength for all had been born. The canyon rested in quiet shadows as night covered the land. The stars above shone brighter than ever, and the fire in the center of the village burned strong. The battle had ended, and the villagers had won. Yet victory brought not only joy, but also questions. Leon sat near the flames, his body weary, his hands still bruised, but his spirit lighter than it had been in many days. The people no longer looked at him with suspicion. Children ran past him with laughter, and elders spoke his name with respect. For the first time since his arrival, he felt like he was not only living in the canyon, but belonging to it. Naya approached and sat across from him. Her bow rested on her shoulder, and her braid was loosened after the long fight. She watched the fire in silence before speaking. Today you showed strength, not only with your hands, but with your knowledge and your will. The people see you now. They see you as one of us. Leon met her gaze, his voice quiet. It was not only me. Without you, without them, we would not have stood a chance. She tilted her head slightly. Perhaps, but you lit the spark. You gave us what we needed to hold. That cannot be forgotten. Grandmother Tala raised her staff, and the crowd fell silent. Her voice carried through the canyon, strong and clear. Tonight we honor those who stood for our land. We honor those who fought with courage. And we honor the one who came as an outsider yet stood as a brother. She gestured toward Leon. He came by law, but tonight he stays by choice. He is no longer only a guest. He is family. The people cheered, their voices echoing against the canyon walls. Some clapped Leon on the back. Others brought food to his side. The warmth of their acceptance filled him with a deep sense of peace. For so long, he had wondered if he had a place among them. Now he knew he did. But even as joy spread through the village, a shadow of concern lingered. Leon saw it in Naya's eyes, in the quiet glances of the elders. The enemy had been driven back, yes, but not destroyed. Their ships still rested beyond the desert. They would return later that night, as the fire burned low. Leon walked to the edge of the canyon where the stars stretched endless across the sky. Naya followed him, her steps soft on the stone. They stood together, looking out into the dark horizon. They will come again, Leon said, stronger, with more machines. They will not forget what happened today. Naya nodded. I know, and we will not forget either. We will be ready. He turned to her. Your people are strong, but they cannot fight alone forever. Beyond the desert, there are others, villages, cities, even hidden colonies. If they knew what was happening here, they might join you. Together, we could be more than survivors. We could be a force strong enough to defend this land. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Considering his words, do you speak of leaving, of going beyond this canyon? Not leaving, Leon said firmly, not leaving forever, but seeking others, building bridges, alone. A spark can fade. Together, Sparks can become fire great enough to be seen among the stars. For a moment she was silent. Then she smiled. Faint but real, you speak like one who finally understands. The fire is not only for warmth, it is for light, to show the way. The following days were filled with work. The villagers repaired what had been damaged, strengthened the traps, and trained harder than before. Leon stood beside them, not as an outsider, but as a partner. He carried water, shaped the soil, and taught what he knew of machines. Slowly, his hands grew skilled. His arms grew stronger. The task that had defeated him before no longer broke him. Koa, once his harshest critic, began to nod with approval when he saw Leon's work. "You learn," he said one evening, handing him a tool. "You stumble, but you rise. That is enough." Grandmother Tala guided the people in ritual, reminding them of their history, their ancestors, and the bond between land and spirit. Leon listened with care, knowing now that strength was not only in weapons or machines but in stories, memory, and unity. Then came the day when the scouts returned from the desert. They brought word that the enemy had retreated far, their machines pulled back toward the horizon. Perhaps the battle had broken their will, or perhaps they were only gathering greater force. Either way, the village had time. At the evening fire, Tala spoke again. "The desert waits. Beyond it, others live, others fight. If we stay hidden, we will remain small. If we reach out, we may grow strong. The choice is before us." The people murmured, their eyes shifting toward Leon. He rose to his feet, feeling their gaze, and spoke from his heart. "I came to you by law, not by choice. At first I thought I did not belong. But now I see that belonging is not given, it is built. You gave me the chance to build it, and I will not waste it. The fight we won is only the beginning. If we want to protect this land, if we want to keep our freedom, we must stand not as one village, but as many together. I will walk into the desert. I will seek those who will join us, and I will return." The villagers listened, their faces lit by the firelight. One by one, they began to nod. Naya stepped beside him, her voice steady. "He will not walk alone. I will go with him." The decision was made. The fire that had started with one spark would now spread. The people would not hide from the world any longer. They would reach out, and their strength would grow. As the stars watched above, Leon felt a calm certainty in his chest. He had come to the canyon as an outsider, bound by law. He had stumbled, doubted, nearly given up, but he had risen, fought, and proved himself. And now he carried not only his own hope, but the hope of an entire people. The desert lay before him, vast and endless. The stars stretched far beyond, carrying the promise of both danger and wonder. But he no longer feared them, for wherever he walked now, he walked not alone, but as part of something greater. And so, with Naya at his side and the blessings of the people at his back, Leon stepped forward into the future, a future where humanity's place among the stars would not be as servants nor as forgotten wanderers, but as a people who could stand, fight, and shine their light across the endless night.